Hi, welcome to Midwest Magic Cleaning. My name is Inigo Montoya. You licked my father. Prepare a pie. What you're looking at in these two pictures is one of the biggest hoarded garages that I've cleaned out. Forewarning, it gets kind of nasty at the end. Not gross, like you're not going to puke or anything. But at its worst, some of these piles were as tall as me and I'm 6'4". This is actually week 2 of working on a month-long project clearing out a severely hoarded house. Last week we did the main living floor of the house, which was a kitchen, living room, dining room, bathroom, 2 bedrooms, and a hallway. This week we're doing the garage. Next week we'll be doing the downstairs, which is really, really bad. And then the final week we'll be clearing out basically a tractor barn. It's this enormous garage that's pretty hoarded itself. So far we have gone through 5 40-yard dumpsters. We will likely go through 5 more before it's done. It's by far the most amount of garbage that we've ever removed from a house. It's the most amount of dumpsters that we've ever had to use in a cleanup. It's absolutely massive. As I mentioned in last week's video, this story of this house is really kind of too sad to talk about, and plus I want to keep some privacy for the family that did live here. They no longer live here, and what I can tell you, at least the basic details, is that it appeared that the mom hoarded. The dad and the kids didn't really clean. She kept it all clean herself, and I think this was a traditional family where the husband ended up working and then came home and did whatever, and then the wife ended up doing the home sort of stuff and the cleaning and the cooking and all that. I can tell you that there was cancer in the family, so whenever she got sick, the cleaning part kind of ended, but the hoard stayed. And then after she passed, the house just rapidly deteriorated. They no longer live here, and this was what was left when they moved out. Now, as far as the garage, there are multiple factors that went into making it look the way you're seeing. It was a combination of severe hoarding disorder, consistent neglect, which does happen in a lot of garages. Hell, my garage has gotten pretty bad. Not this bad, but it's gotten pretty bad before too. Because you just kind of set stuff out there and then forget they exist or ignore it. Combined with the case of this nasty furniture has to go somewhere because we're replacing it and we don't really have a place to dump it because we live in the country. So let's just chuck it out into the garage and worry about it later. I think that's the scientific term for that part of the disorder. And you can see that because there was a full couch, a love seat, a recliner, or not a recliner, but just a regular giant seat, a chair, a butt table, whatever you want to call those. There were several end tables, several pieces of old furniture like sewing tables and end tables. There was a coffee table and a kitchen table and chairs. Those were all just kind of chucked into one big pile, but they were thrown on top of a whole bunch of other garbage, which is what made this pile so enormous. What we're going to do is start on the easiest part, which was still extremely difficult, and work our way toward that furniture. That way we don't try to pull a couch off the top of that and end up causing a trash avalanche and end up getting hurt. Now, to start this out, we're going to move kind of slow. You're going to see us picking up handfuls of items and sometimes just like one item in each hand. Part of that is Jason has ADHD, and that's kind of the way he operates to begin with. I have never been diagnosed with ADHD. I am autistic. I'm sure I have ADHD qualities, or whatever you call them, infestations. I have slight parasitic ADHD, if you will. And you will. Oh, you will. Anyway, part of that is we know that everything beyond the first layer of trash is going to be unsalvageable because there's a whole bunch of pet urine, mouse poop and mouse pee. There's a bunch of rotted food and rotted pet food. But if we happen to find any really important paperwork, like a will or a deed to land, we want to make sure that we save those, but they're not going to be saved beyond the first layer of trash. So we're being a little bit careful in what we pick up, and then we're also kind of getting bulky items out of the way too. So we may grab a handful of stuff and throw it away, but we're also going to grab as many prepackaged trash bags as we can. And in almost every trash bag that you see us picking up, it's filled with dolls and stuffed animals, and that's going to be a running theme that you see throughout this whole house. We've found so far somewhere around 200 pairs of shoes, and at this point, by the time the garage was cleaned, I would say 500 dolls and stuffed animals. This house also had another thing that we find in many, many hoarder houses, which is an absolute overload of crafting supplies, but no sign of actual crafted items. So thread, yarn, looms, cross-stitching stuff, but there's no sign that any of that was actually used. It was more like it was just collected from estate sales and yard sales. Then it all went into a box or a tub or a bag and just got shoved into a corner. The other thing we found was hundreds of romance novels, and just like every hoarder house we'd ever done, there were hundreds and hundreds of magazines. I don't know what the deal is, but every house that has hoarding disorder in it also has a massive amount of magazines. Now, later on in the video, once we get down past a certain area, we're going to start using a snow shovel and a push broom. But right now, we'd just be spinning our wheels if we tried that, because there's simply too much stuff. It's actually way faster to do all this stuff by hand in the beginning than it is to try to muscle a snow shovel underneath all this pile of crap. Now, for the most part, everything's just going to go straight into the dumpster. Like 95% of everything is going away. However, there are some things that you can't put in a dumpster, and I don't know if that's just Illinois regulations or if it's a federal thing. But for instance, there are 3 or 4 CRT TVs in this garage, and we're not allowed to put those in there. Anything with a compressor, so a refrigerator, air conditioning unit, your mom. Most PC towers can't just be chucked, because I think part of that is that they contain a certain amount of mercury. I don't know, I may just be pulling that out of my butt. Sometimes I pull PC towers out of my butt. But also there's a certain amount of gold in each of those on, I think it's the motherboard, I can't remember. I'm just going off of things that I've heard, so I should probably research that so I'm not just bald-faced lying to you. But anyway, regardless of the reasons, you can't really throw PC towers into a dumpster. Sometimes people do it and they don't care. We try to stick to the rules because we deal with this dumpster company a lot, which is JBL out of, I think it's Indianapolis. Big shout out to them. They are a fantastic company. If you're in the Indianapolis area or pretty much anywhere in Indiana, they're a fantastic company to work with. You can't throw away any paint cans that still have paint in them. If the paint is exhausted because it works so hard, son, then you can throw those cans in the dumpster. Otherwise, you got to find some sort of Home Depot or some sort of store that deals in paint that can help you get rid of them. And you also can't throw in anything that's got oil or gas in it. So not just gas or oil cans, but lawnmowers. They can't go into a dumpster unless they're completely dry, and even then it's kind of a 50-50 chance on whether they're going to give you crap or not. So respecting the rules, we don't do that, but also out of respect to the dumpster company, because I don't want them to be dealing with stuff that wasn't supposed to be going into a dumpster anyway, and they have their reasons for not putting those in a dumpster. I don't want to disrespect the company or the people who are handling this refuse. Now, that being said, there are going to be some things that go into the dumpster that are iffy. So, for instance, broken glass. If I have to put broken glass into a dumpster, I typically try to box it up so that it's contained. I don't like to put broken glass just out in the open because you never know if it's going to fly out of the dumpster while it's being transported. You don't want people to dump that stuff into a landfill or wherever it goes, and then somebody gets injured from broken glass. I try to be careful whenever I'm putting anything that can be dangerous into a dumpster. It's why instead of just throwing live moose or live barking, snapping wolves into a dumpster when I find them in a garage like this, I just shoo them out and set them free. Otherwise, when they dump all this stuff into a landfill, they can shoot out of there like a moose geyser and attack whoever's closest. And that happens all the time. I just refuse to be a part of that. I don't want to be liable for moose geyser attacks. Hey, while we're watching us do this, let me shout out some channels, especially some old school channels that I haven't called out in a while. For those of you who have been around the channel for a long time, these are going to be things that you've heard before. But for people who are new to the channel, there are a group of cleaning channels that I really love to watch. I watch all these that I'm about to mention. And if you like my channel, you will most likely like these. I said like a whole lot just then. But after you subscribe to my channel, these people could also use your subscriptions because they're just fantastic channels. The first is probably my favorite YouTube channel in general. It's called Feral Tradwife, and it's ran by a woman named Beth, who is one of the funniest people I've ever met, but she's also slightly crazy, and she happens to be one of my best friends. We've become very good friends over the past year or so. So we have a very big brother, actually, let me rephrase that, little brother and much, much older sister dynamic where we give each other crap nonstop. So if you haven't been around the channel, you would think that we just hated each other, but we just like giving each other crap nonstop. So anyway, if you ever hear me make a joke about Beth on this channel, Feral Tradwife is who I'm talking about, and you'll totally understand it once you see her channel. It's hilarious in every way, and it's wonderful. She deserves your subscription like right now or now. The next is an old school channel that I've called out a lot. It's called Fife Free Cleaning. They're out of Fife, Scotland, and they do what I do, where they clean really extreme houses for free, but their narration is great because it's two really good friends just sitting down after they filmed all the footage, and they just talk to each other kind of free-flowing, just like friends, and it feels so good to just turn their video on and sit back and feel like you're in a room with your own friends listening to them joke and cut up and just be great people. All the links to these, by the way, are in the description of this video. The third is Clean with Barbie. Barbie has been a friend of mine for quite a while. I haven't called her out in ages, but she does some of the most extreme houses you will ever see. She is doing it in New York, and she's about ready to move to Spain shortly. But if you want to see some absolutely crazy houses transformed in mind-blowing ways, Clean with Barbie is one of the best channels to see that. And the last is A Beautiful Mess. That's ran by a woman named Bonnie, and she's just like, imagine your nicest, most lovable aunt. I don't know why I describe her that way, but it fits in my family where you've got this really nice, lovable, personable aunt that you just want to hug all the time. And that's Bonnie. She has the same flavor of autism as me, but she also has ADHD. But she uses that almost like a superpower and focuses, like really hyper focuses on some of the best organizational type videos you'll see. She does a lot of cleaning too, but her strength is in organization, and it is fantastic to watch her do her thing. But if you can drop by their channels, give them a quick hey, let them know we sent you over there, and then give them a subscribe, that would be awesome. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, that would be great too, because we are working toward 1 million subscribers, which we should see this year. Right now, we're sitting at 719,000 subscribers, so we're actually getting really, really close. It's kind of insane how close we're getting. It feels surreal. Once we hit 1 million subscribers, I am going to do one video. I don't know how I'm going to pull it off, but I'm going to put that gold plaque around my neck on a chain like Flavor Flav's giant clock, and then I'm going to do some sort of video while wearing that. But also, once we hit 1 million subscribers, I will just stop asking people to subscribe because I know it's annoying. But I mean, I can't get the subscriptions unless I ask, because I do the same thing. I'll watch a channel, I'll love it, it'll show up in my feed all the time, and I'll watch all their videos, and then I'll realize down the line, oh, I never subscribed to this. I'm kind of a butt. Then I'll subscribe in order to unbutt myself. So don't be a butt. Unbutt yourself and hit the subscribe button, please, or I will do it for you. I'm not putting up with your buttitude. I'm not putting up with it. I mentioned this in last week's video, but I want to reiterate it here because there's a lot of videos that people just won't watch or they don't see. So there's going to be a whole bunch of people who see this video who didn't see last week's. And you're going to have questions about donations because all this stuff is going to a landfill, and I get it. I'm not a big fan of it hitting a landfill either, but unfortunately this is the end result of severe hoarding disorder. Eventually this stuff just all hits a landfill. It's the sad truth. So I get a lot of people who say, well, why can't you donate this furniture or these clothes, stuff that you know you can clean up? And there's a few reasons. The first is we only really have about one place in my area where you can donate stuff, and they are overloaded and will not take stuff from a hoarder house. They also won't take it if it's damaged or scratched, if it's got stains on it, which almost everything in here does. The other thing is people will ask, well, why don't you set that dresser out on the curb and let somebody take it for free? This house is way deep in the country and there is no curb. There's no houses around it, and the houses that do exist within driving distance already have stuff. They're kind of nice houses. This is just not a place where you can set things on a curb and have them picked up. This is a very, very small rural area surrounded by cornfields. Another thing that gets brought up a lot is, why don't you donate all these shoes or these clothes that you find to women's shelters? And it's the same issue. Small town, no women's shelters. And even if there was a woman's shelter, we still wouldn't donate the stuff we found in this house because they're covered in pet urine, mice urine, mouse poop. They're stained, they're torn, they're ripped. I would just rather show up with a check to a woman's shelter and say, here's a couple $1,000s for you to buy the supplies that they most need, than to just drop off a bunch of stuff and say, here's some garbage we found in a hoarder house. It sucks. I get it. I agree with it. But keep in mind that we always get people who suggest ways to get rid of this stuff, but they don't realize that we've done about 200 to 300 of these houses. Everything you can imagine, we have tried. And those of you who live in these small rural areas where you have towns that have 50 people in this one, and the quote unquote big town in the area is only 2,000 people, and there's 30 miles between each of these little spotty towns, and it's just cornfield after cornfield and soybeans and pig farms. Those people can back up what I'm saying when I tell you that the things that exist in a city just don't exist in our area. Like, we don't even have public transportation, no taxis, no buses, no trains, no subways. We don't pay for parking because you don't have to. You just park wherever you're going, right outside the business, go in, do your thing, and come out and leave. It's such a different universe than what people are used to, even in a mid-sized city. So a lot of times the advice that we're getting are from people who live in an area that has 20,000 to 600,000 people, and they have resources, whereas we just plain don't. So it all boils down to an issue of resources, but also an issue of time. So even if we were doing this garage and it was all clean and all donatable, we would triple or quadruple the amount of time that we spent in order to get these donated, just by trying to separate out each type of thing that we're going to be donating. So putting all the clothes together, finding all the craft supplies and boxing those up, finding the places that would take them to begin with, then finding a method of transporting them to those places, because the places aren't going to come out to get the stuff that we're going to donate. I drive a 2-door car. There's not enough room to put stuff in. We would have to wrangle up somebody who's willing to volunteer their time and gas money to ship those things to those places. It's just not feasible in our area. That said, on the rare occasion where we do find stuff that's donatable, I will make an attempt to bag those things up and take them to a donation center. Like, we have a small place called Silk Purse, and then we have plenty of churches. We're in the Midwest. Like, it's like welcome to the Midwest population church. So we do have those areas and those churches and those businesses that will take certain types of donations. And when we can, we try. We make an attempt. Unfortunately, for the types of places that we clean, that is extraordinarily rare, because by the time we get to them, everything in the house is pretty much destroyed. I was really interested in the shelving units that you'll see in the background here because they were all loaded with food, and the hoard was packed so tightly against that and so tall that it was evident that nobody could get to those for a really long time. So I was interested to see what was the oldest food we could find in there because we knew it had to have been years. Because a hoard like this doesn't just happen overnight. That's built up over a long amount of time. The oldest food that we found in those cabinets was 2009 for an expiration date, which meant they bought them in 2008. Because typically you'll buy something, it's got about a 1-year expiration date on it, and people don't typically buy food at the expiration date. So we knew that it was bought about a year beforehand. So you're talking about 2008 that food has been sitting in there. And for us older people, that doesn't sound like that long ago, but understand that's 17 years that's been sitting there. We're positive that there was older food because as you go down the shelving units, the older the cans look, and most of them are so old that they've rusted through, so you can't even see an expiration date. I would assume that from the age of those cans compared to what was in the shelves above it, you're probably talking about 2000 or very early 2000s, so I think a lot of the food on the bottom shelves have been there at least 20 years. And you can also tell that they bought in bulk because they wouldn't just have one bottle of Italian dressing, they would have 6. They would have 5 or 6 bottles of barbecue sauce, 15 cans of fruit cocktail, 12 packages of dried moose face, and strangely, just 1 can of Spam. Now, mentally, this is the easiest cleanup that we can do because everything just goes into a dumpster and we don't have to deal with the people who have hoarding disorder. So we don't have to argue about keeping things that we think are just pointless and without value. And we don't have to worry about trying to store stuff that clearly should be thrown away. We just scoop it all up, toss it in a dumpster, and then that's that. But unfortunately, physically, it's the hardest cleanup that we do because we're making 100 or more trips to the dumpster. And even if that's close, we're walking several miles per day, oftentimes carrying trash cans or trash bags that weigh 100+ pounds. So I can tell you that by the time we were done with this, both Jason and I were absolutely exhausted. I slept like a rock, and then I just realized after I said that rocks don't sleep. So I slept like something that sleeps really well. Whatever that is, that's how I slept after we got done with this stuff. I slept like a professional sleeper, like a performance artist whose job is just to sleep. We just ordered our next dumpster after we finish with this garage, which would make 5 so far. We're getting ready to start our 5th dumpster on Monday or Tuesday. So after we've done the main part of the house, which was last week's video, and then this week's video where we did the garage, next week we're starting the downstairs, which is way more hoarded than the upstairs was. The downstairs basically hasn't been touched. Whereas the upstairs, when we started it, someone else had came in there and made an attempt to clean at one point, but just got overwhelmed and said, there's no way we can pull this off. The downstairs is going to be an issue, and I think it's going to be one of the more exciting videos on this series, which will last, I think it's going to take us 4 videos to pull it off, so we're going to be doing this over the course of 4 weeks or a month. Part of me is really excited to start that because I want to see what it looks like when all the junk is removed. The other part of me is thinking, oh my God, my body is going to be dead by the time we're done with this. One of the more interesting things that we found about this house was that there was no bugs. There was no roaches. Normally a place like this, whenever you have such huge piles of stuff, they're infested with spiders, but there wasn't even that. We found a couple of centipedes, we found a few pill bugs, and we found daddy long legs. But other than that, there was nothing. This was just stuff that you'd find outside. Normally a place like this would be infested with roaches. We found some evidence of old decon mouse traps, like mouse poison, but we found no mouse bodies. We found very minimal mouse poop. The biggest thing that we had an issue with was cat poop everywhere. Cat or a small dog. I'm not an expert on poop shape, but we're thinking that because they had pets, that kept the mice population down, or the mouse population was so big that they kept the roach problem down. I don't know. It's just super weird to find a pile of stuff this big that covers so much of the house and not have those infestations, but they just didn't exist. So suck it. And I think one of the reasons I find that so surprising is because once we got down to the bottom of the piles, there was a whole bunch of old pet food that had been there for a long time and had rotted. I mean, normally that's an open invitation to any sort of pest to come in and just have a heyday. But it's like all the pests in the area looked at it and then was like, nah, we're good. Thank you for the offer, though. Also, I am a talking roach. When it comes to the downstairs, the people who own it are sending over a couple of people who can help move the heavier stuff. Because keep in mind, I'm not charging them for any of this. The only thing they're paying for is the dumpsters, and I'm not charging them for labor or anything. I just asked to be able to film it in return for the work. But I don't want to be lifting a 250-pound armoire with just me and Jason. It's dangerous. We're extraordinarily strong men, like frighteningly strong, to where when other men see us work, they they start crying, partially out of fear and partially out of respect. But still, I don't want to be carrying that stuff up with just the two of us. So other people are going to come in and help us get those big things out of the way so we can do our work. A question I get asked a lot whenever I'm doing houses like this is, what do we do with our clothes and our shoes when we're done? If the place is really bad, we're talking like maggots and rot and toxic stuff, I'll just straight up throw my shoes and clothes away. So that's why you're seeing me wear, I've got these pair of Nikes that are covered in paint and gross stuff. I wear those on all these cleanups. That way, if I have to throw them away, who cares? They're already trashed. If it's like this, where I don't consider this to be a toxic environment, then I'll just wash the clothes like normal, and the shoes I will spray off with a garden hose, and then I'll spray those down with isopropyl alcohol. Not 90%, use the 70% type. I'm talking to you as if you're going to be like cleaning hoarder houses, but what I do is spray it down with 70% isopropyl alcohol, and then just let that dry and evaporate, and that kills any nasty things that are on them. But yeah, if I'm stepping in just a whole bunch of nasty stuff through a whole hoarder house, and I can tell just by looking at them that they're like, they're going straight in the garbage. And sometimes I do that with Jason too. So like if he's helping me out with a big hoarder house and he gets disgusting, I'll just throw him in the dumpster, and then he can clean himself off at the landfill and work his way back home. But like, he's not riding in my car back with me to my house. He's just going to have to hoof it. Again, if you're not subscribed, now would be a great time to do it. That way you can keep up with this house as we progress. After next week, we'll have one more video on this place at least, and then we'll be moving on to the next house. That being said, members, I will see you on Wednesday. Everybody else, I'll see you next weekend. Later.